Even after taking the super soldier serum and telling the American people that they're being lied to, Captain America is realizing that he's gonna have to do something a little bit different than what he's used to get people to join his side. Especially once we talk about the huge reveal of who Steve is actually up against. What's going on, everyone? I'm Joe, and today I'm talking about Avengers Twilight issue number 2 by Chip Zdarsky, art by Daniel Acuña, and lettering by Corey Pettit. At the end of the first issue of Avengers Twilight, we see Steve taking the super soldier serum, and he's basically old and super jacked. And that leads right into this issue where we see Captain America handle 2 iron cops who were picking on this homeless man for probably not following some silly rule that the totalitarian government has put in place. Now, in the video that I did talking about this first issue, which you can watch right here, I talk about how the villain in this story so far seems to be this government / shield who has basically created this false sense of security to the general public by spreading fake news. We also learned in the last issue that James Stark, Tony Stark's son, is in cahoots with the government and S.H.I.E.L.D. by providing them with Stark technology. In this issue, we see James with his version of Jarvis, who is a person by the way, at the White House talking to the president, basically talking about rumors of how Steve Rogers is back as Captain America. And in this conversation between the 3 of them, it's revealed that basically Jarvis is the CEO of America. That's what he calls himself, and that basically the president is the puppet. And that's because of all of the money that they've essentially paid to be in control of the government and rule this. So now the villain so far of this story has now shifted to James Stark as well as Jarvis / Stark Technologies. So they decide that they need to control Captain America before it gets too out of hand, and that they're going to call in the Thunderbolts. No, not that Thunderbolts. These Thunderbolts are basically a special forces group within the US Marines. And with Steve knowing damn well that the government is most likely already onto him, he tries to track down an old hero friend to help him out. That's when we get the introduction of Kamala Khan, aka Miss Marvel. And now she has a family. She has 2 kids, and even though Steve tries to recruit her, she says that's not really fair and I don't want to do that. I have a family to take care of, I have other things to worry about, and I just want to keep them safe and out of harm's way. However, after Steve leaves from their conversation, we do see her go into a basement and turn on a radio, and it's clearly a resistance radio channel. So she has been paying attention to what's going on. Also, another big reveal in the conversation between Steve and Kamala is that there are Avengers that still exist in this real world. It sounds like they are the same Avengers with the same names and suits and armor and all of that stuff as the original Avengers that we know of, except they are clearly being controlled by the government. Now, we still don't know if they're actually humans or robots or what that is, but there are Avengers, and that goes back to why people have kind of clothing and apparel supporting these heroes. So with Steve knowing that he doesn't have much help, he realizes that he can't fight like he usually does, which is on the battlefield. The Defenders decide that they are going to fight through the media with words. And they decide the best way to do this is in New York Times Square on New Year's Eve, and Steve is going to give a speech. So when the Defenders and Steve are on this mission to basically tell the American people that they're being lied to, of course they get caught by some Iron Cops, and the Thunderbolts are on the scene as well. Luckily, the Defenders are able to tap into the main feed, and Steve is able to give a quick, short speech. As Cap is giving his speech, we actually see who's calling the shots, because a Thunderbolt is actually in place to snipe Steve from a distance, and they're telling him to take the shot. However, we get a cut to Jarvis, who says, there's actually no need to take him out. He's already doing more harm to himself than he actually thinks. But that's when it gets even crazier, because we get a reveal of the person who's actually calling the shots. We get a flashback to H-Day, aka Hero Day, which again, all we know at this point was a travesty where thousands of lives were lost, and basically the public perception of superheroes changed for the negative. In this flashback, we learn that S.H.I.E.L.D. was part of what made H-Day happen, and we also learn that Doctor Strange is another superhero that died on H-Day. And that's still not even the biggest reveal. We learned that Jarvis is not actually Jarvis. He is Red Skull. And not only that, Red Skull has made some sort of deal with Ultron to eventually take over. And while I didn't see that coming at all, it does make the most sense, right? Red Skull is one of the longest running enemies of Captain America, and now the way that Red Skull has gone about it has disguised himself as Jarvis, has integrated himself into his best friend's company is basically now running it and basically raised his best friend's son, James Stark, probably brainwashed him to believe these certain things about superheroes that James does not like, and is now basically running a fascist regime in America, let alone quite possibly the entire world. And so now that we know that Red Skull is quote unquote the main villain of this entire story, at least from what we know, I do think it's going to be interesting moving forward because he obviously has control over the Avengers that are out and about in the world. And we don't know much else about what they're doing, but my guess is that it's probably not very good things, and that they're also probably creating some sort of oppression in the rest of the world. But I do think there's a strong possibility that we will see someone else come into play, whether he is a hero or a villain, that is to be told. But at the end of the first issue, there's a short, older comic by Ralph Macchio and Walt Simonson, basically where Loki narrates where he created events that led to the creation of the Avengers. And so I do think that there is going to be some strong possibility that we will see Loki in future issues within this little series. But all of this creates questions, especially for Steve, as he's questioning himself as to what these people actually want, because Red Skull has clearly created a safe enough perception that people don't even care that they're necessarily being lied to, because they are living in a world that most people feel is safe and okay. I can't help but laugh because that's when we basically see Luke Cage slap the shit out of Steve and say, it doesn't matter. We know what is right and we need to do what we need to do because this is wrong. Even though they're at a crossroads, they have a next step in plan, and that is to reach out to Tony Stark. And we've only seen a weird glimpse of him where he's in the raft, like half of his body, from the first issue. Overall, another great issue. In fact, I liked it even more than the first one. I would definitely give this a 9 to a 9.5 out of 10. Again, Zdarsky's writing is on point. There's really no wasted time or panels or dialogue. It moves on smoothly. Acuña's art is still absolutely stunning. Let me know what you thought of this issue. I'd love to chat about it with you down in the comments. And if you want more Marvel content like this, hit that like and subscribe down below. And until the next video, Excelsior.